Only the Avatar can save the world. But who's gonna save him? Katara.
You're looking at the only waterbender in the whole South Pole.
Avatar: The Last Airbender brings a wide display of fantastic new deck styles to the Commander format. Whether you're soaring to the clouds with airbending, raising powerful creatures with earthbending, or making everything change when the Fire Nation attacks, there is something cool and exciting to try. But one of the most unexpected additions to this set was the return of a long-forgotten Kindred strategy, the Allies. This creature type originates from the Zendikar sets and represents the bond of expedition parties in their pursuit of greatness. And now, here with this Avatar set, we see friends like Aang, Iroh, Boomy, and Toph all sharing this creature type in their unison of nations to bring the end of the Great War. The greatest of these allies here is the immediate team who travel the world with Aang to help him learn all the elements. And that brings us to our commander of this Kindred-themed deck called Bubble Buddies. It's Katara the Fearless. Katara casts for green, white, and blue. It's a legendary human warrior ally. It's a 3/3. If a triggered ability of an ally you control triggers, it triggers an additional time. We've seen cards like these in other Commander All-Stars like Yarok, Ishin, and Teysa Karlov, all of which grant repeated value on cards that they have effects trigger. But Katara is very cool in the fact that it says triggered abilities. What this means is that at a basic level, anything that says when this creature enters gives additional triggers, but also anything else across any other allies we play that is a triggered ability of some kind, either from entering combat, declaring attack, dealing combat damage, or dying, all trigger if that creature type is an ally. So let's start from the top and work our way down, starting with creatures that say as they enter play. An excellent example of something like this is Earth King's Lieutenant. It is a 2-mana 1/1 with trample that when this creature enters, you put a 1/1 counter on each other ally you control, and a separate line of whenever another ally you control enters, you put a +1/+1 counter on him. This is the kind of card that is an excellent example of what we can accomplish with Katara. Both of these lines can be duplicated as part of her ability to give you an additional trigger of triggered abilities from allies. And this is the kind of idea that we are looking to do with the rest of this deck. Allies from both Zendikar and the Avatar set with relevant sets of triggered abilities across all styles of play. Fortunately for us, a lot of Zendikar's allies already worked a lot like this with either longer text boxes that say this kind of wording, or allies in the case of Battle for Zendikar that have the keyword ability on them called Rally. Talus Paladin, for example, says that whenever it or another ally you control enters, you may have allies gain lifelink and you can put a +1/+1 counter on him. Obviously, for Katara's sake, double lifelink doesn't do much, but the 2 counters per ally is big. And a lot of the other cheaper allies we're playing in this deck also do the counters onto themselves in a similar fashion. Another great instance of a trigger to duplicate is card draw with one of the few types of shapeshifters that we're playing in this deck, Titan of Littjara. A 6-mana 6/6 that as it enters, you choose a creature type, and it becomes that type in addition to its other types. And when this creature enters or attacks, you draw cards equal to the number of other creatures that share a type with this one and then discard a card. Even on a relatively smaller board, if Katara is part of the equation for that battlefield, you'll get to draw 2 times X the number of other allies you control in play anytime Titan of Littjara enters the battlefield or attacks. Synergy pieces like these are excellent examples as to why Katara is an excellent choice for this type of Kindred strategy, with less obvious triggered abilities that can fire off than just creatures that enter the battlefield. Another sneaky example of this comes from Unsettled Mariner. It is a 2-mana 2/2 with Changeling, meaning that it has all creature types, and it says that whenever you or another permanent you control becomes the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, counter it unless they pay 1. Since this kind of ability is coming from the Mariner itself, which is an ally thanks to the ability it has with Changeling, they have their abilities or their spell countered unless they pay 1 mana twice, essentially adding a 2 extra mana tax on any amount of interaction that our opponents might have. Other forms of triggered abilities can also be fired off at particular phases of the turn, the most common of which being cards that say at the beginning of your upkeep or at the beginning of your end step. An excellent case example of this is a card from the Jumpstart set, Aang, Master Airbender, who's got several different types of abilities across various phases of the turn that we can make duplicates of thanks to Katara. For 5 mana, you get a legendary human avatar ally, and when he enters the battlefield, you airbend another target creature. Whenever one or more creatures you control leave play without dying, you get an experience counter, and at your upkeep, you create a 1/1 white ally for each experience counter you have. Because all of these abilities are triggering at various points, if we have Katara down in play, the compounded extra triggers start stacking. So, when Aang enters, that trigger will be duplicated, and you can airbend up to 2 other creatures. If those creatures are yours as they leave play, the second line of text will get doubled up twice as well, gaining you 4 experience counters on its own. And then you move to your upkeep phase, which will then track the amount of experience counters you currently have, and that will get doubled as well, creating you a base of 8 allies off of just playing a single creature. We mentioned previously that another great place for triggered abilities comes from the combat step, and attacking is what we're going to want to be doing with all of these other allies that are getting bigger, say from their 1/1 counters or other forms of triggered abilities that we are duplicating. The card Aang and Katara from the Scene Box kit not only makes a fantastic combat payoff for what we're looking to do, but could also act as a very decent substitute commander of this deck should you want to focus the idea more in a combat-focused direction. They are a 6 mana legendary human avatar ally, and when they enter or attack, you create X 1/1 white ally creature tokens, where X is the number of tapped creatures and or artifacts you control. This card doesn't care how those creatures became tapped, so if they are a bunch of other allies swinging alongside Aang and Katara, with Katara the Fearless down in play as well, you'll create 2 times that amount of tapped creatures as back as ally tokens, that each of those would also do double triggers of any other allies you have that care about an ally entering the battlefield. One of my other favorite sneaky combat triggers that we can give to our creatures comes from the card Legion Loyalty, an 8 mana enchantment that says your creatures you control have Myriad, meaning that when it swings, you get a token copy of that creature tapped and attacking at each other player that the original is not currently swinging at. So in a 3-person game, if you are swinging a creature with Myriad at one opponent, you will create 2 other tapped token copies of that said creature going at your other 2 opponents. This kind of trigger is wild with Katara down in play, since you'll get the Myriad to trigger twice per creature, creating you 2 copies of that attacking creature per player who the original wasn't already swinging at. This same thing can be applied as well with the card Blade of Selves, but this is an equipment that goes onto a single creature. The best part out of all of this, though, is that even if the Myriad copies of the creature are legendary and they do not get to stick, you still get to have any enters the battlefield triggers from other allies. The deck we're running, though, has a variety of other fantastic allies that don't inherently get double triggers from our commander Katara, but have just too good amount of synergy with what we're looking to do to not include them here. From a variety of simple creatures like Harabaz Druid to larger combat creatures like Veteran War Leader, and even some allies who have very cool triggered abilities, but duplicating them off of a Katara don't necessarily help us that much, such as cards like Hero of Gomafada. Now that we've mentioned about how we're creating all of these allies, getting them stronger, and being able to swing in, how are we getting them all through? We mentioned about some of the great combat-focused creatures like I had mentioned about before, but it's nice to have ways to ensure that we can always get damage in as often as possible. Cards like Raise the Palisade will be one of the better ways that we can get our allies through, by choosing ally as the creature type for this spell, and it's going to then bounce to their hands any other creature our opponents control that aren't currently the ally creature type. And let's be honest, we're going to be the only ones playing allies here, so... Another fantastic piece we're playing is in our land slot called Secret Tunnel. Once again, because 95% of the creatures that we are going to be playing are either an ally or create tokens that are allies, the restriction here of needing to have exactly 2 creatures minimum to target with this land's ability is not even necessarily a downside, but rather a huge boost as compared to playing a card like Rogue's Passage, which Secret Tunnel is a riff on. And if all else fails, if we can't get through any evasion whatsoever, our ideal strategy is just to go extra wide with the amount of creatures and creature tokens that we can do, using stuff like mass token generation, cards like United Front. It's X and double white sorcery that creates X 1/1 white ally tokens and then puts a 1/1 counter on each creature. Sometimes the winning strategy is the simplest one. Blocking one creature can't stop an army. Breaking from our allies for a moment, the rest of the deck that we're looking at here is pretty typical Bant Commander staple stuff, with a mild support of Blink in here, such as cards like Ephemerate and Eerie Interlude, to allow multiple re-triggers of the allies who have relevant enters the battlefield abilities. Other spells we're playing in here is your traditional suite of counterspells, mana acceleration, and rocks. The land package is the kind of expected stuff that you would expect to see in a Bant deck like this, some fetchable non-basics, some basic lands. I did have a couple fun includes that I wanted to bring to your attention. First of all, no real particular gameplay reason as to why I've put snow basics here as our basic land package, but since the nature of what Katara is as a Southern Water Tribe waterbender, it just kind of felt right to have snow lands in here. Secondly, I had 2 specific callouts for ally support lands, Ally Encampment and Jasmine Dragon Tea Shop. Both of these lands have tapped abilities on them to create you mana of any one color usable for allies, which is excellent in helping us fill out a little bit of the mana fixing we need. Even though we are 3 color, we always want to make sure that we have the correct color available to cast our said allies, especially our commander. Ally Encampment has an ability that can act as an instant speed save for any ally of yours, and the Tea Shop allows you to create more ally tokens, both of which have very relevant good abilities if you need them in a pinch. And this brings us to the finale of our adventure. For a recap, this deck is utilizing a suite of fantastic ally creatures with relevant triggered abilities for our commander to create additional copies of. From a selection of allies who grow stronger, create us tokens, draw us cards, or give us combat evasion, there are so many valuable abilities for us to have extra duplicates of that playing this synergy of creatures together is just pure gas. At the end of the day, though, this is just another Kindred deck, but what I like to see out of something like this is that sort of teamwork puzzle, where unlike a big Kindred Matter style deck like Slivers that just want you to play all the slivers for the sake of a sliver, allies are here to want to assemble your perfect little team of combat and triggered ability keywords to help ensure a guaranteed victory against any of your opponents. Thank you so much for watching another episode of the Super Quick Deck Tech. Avatar has been such an exciting change of pace from Universes Beyond that we hope that you all are enjoying this new set as much as we are here on the channel. If you want to see the full deck list of what I've assembled for this Allies themed deck, be sure to check out the link to it in the description box down below. If you're looking to build this deck for yourself or any other Avatar-themed deck and you're looking to keep them safe and secure, be sure to check out our sponsors of the channel, Heavy Play, for one of the best on the markets for deck protection with their Equip Mag system, linking together all of their tabletop accessories via a magnet rail, or their curved sleeves for the most comfortable in-card protection. You can visit heavyplay.com/MTGThoughtcast or follow the link down below, or use the checkout code MTGThoughtcast for 10% off your first order. Everything we do here at the MTG Thoughtcast is also from support of viewers like you. Thank you so much for everyone who is a subscriber. We love and appreciate all of you for being here. If you're not already subscribed, please consider doing so to follow along our channel for more videos like this, plus weekly podcast, gameplay streams, and Commander gameplay videos. Thank you all once again for watching, and we'll see you all again real soon.